Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on the pod. Women's Sports Weekly is once again creating a bracket for March Madness.
I cannot believe we're at this time of year already. It feels like it went super fast, and it already feels like it's been March Madness with all the upsets happening.
March Madness has definitely been happening already. We're in our first week of March, but wowzas. And we will have a bracket again this year for Women's Sports Weekly. You can't make your picks yet, but you can sign up for the bracket. We will drop a link to the bracket in our show notes. We'll also create a social media post, but you can sign up now. We want to have even more people than we had last year, and there will be a prize for the winner. We just don't know what that prize is going to be yet.
I'm excited to see what the bracket is once it's revealed, and excited for some competition with our listeners.
Yes.
In other fun news, we are starting a run club. We are partnering with the 99ers Sports Bar here in Denver. Women's Sports Weekly will be running the run club on Thursday nights starting March 13th at 6 p.m. If you do not follow us on socials, now's a good time. We will post more information on Instagram. We've also shared in the past, and we do have some people on our Strava group, but we are on Strava as well. So if you search Women's Sports Weekly and find us, we will post the route there, more information, including the information we share on Instagram. So be on the lookout for that this week, and we're excited to get that started.
Let's set the expectations for Run Club a little bit.
That's a good point. This is by no means a competitive run club. The point of this is to create a community. Mm-hmm. We have had so much fun at the 99ers in general, meeting people. We are trying to build more of a community. This is not a competitive run club at all. The goal for this is to be a social run club. So we will make sure that all paces feel included. If you're nervous about joining, I think this is the run club to join, because I truly mean it when I say we just want to do this as a fun social activity. After we run, we'll have some drinks at 99ers and just hang out afterwards every Thursday.
I don't like to run, and I will be participating in the run club. So know that if you're nervous or something, I will be there to commiserate with you. You don't have to regularly run. You could want to explore it. Please come and try it out. We will be running approximately 3 miles. You can add on more to that because we're going to a park that you could run around, or you could do less. If you are not from the Denver area but are visiting Denver and it happens to be on a Thursday, like, come out, meet us. We'd love to run with you. If you have any questions about it, you can send us a DM.
We're excited to just get to know more people and hang out with more people, and hopefully that's what happens with this.
Love it. And maybe I'll like running a little bit more if it's with people who I like, although I run a bunch with you and I like
yeah,
you.
Like, I should be nervous with that statement because you don't seem very happy when you run with me.
I will try not to be a grump.
Sounds good.
That is what I will try to do. Beer at the end is always helpful.
And if you do not drink, there's plenty of non-alcoholic options.
Correct.
And we welcome, like I said, everyone. So just want to make that clear as well.
We have a listener letter again this week.
I want to start calling this section Listener's Corner. Does that sound like it rolls off the tongue nicely?
I think we need to workshop it a little bit more.
All right. If you have ideas, let us know. But you know I love a good email. One of our listeners reached out, so why don't you share what they said?
Hey, Carolyn and Danielle. My name is Sophia. I'm a college student who wants to keep up with March Madness, women's basketball, as well as the W. However, I don't have cable. I was wondering if you have any insight into which is the best platform to stream these games. I was also curious if you have any opinions on how or why games are aired across multiple platforms. I love the podcast and congratulations on the Unrivaled interviews. Thank you so much. Hope you can help, Sophia. My first response to this question is you need to find a friend with cable.
Yeah, we definitely do that.
We don't have cable. We have a smart TV that we download apps on. But if you do have a friend with cable, and our friend is my sister and my brother-in-law, they have a login for their cable provider that we use. And I hope we're not incriminating ourselves right now.
Maybe we shouldn't include that.
Danielle, it's totally fine. So befriend someone with cable because that will make your life incredibly more easy. It doesn't mean that you take over their cable plan. It just means that when you need a login, you have someone to use so that you can view the games you want to view. I'll also say, as far as streaming women's basketball games, college, I think ESPN is the best place to start because ESPN, you can get ABC games on there. You can get ACC Network. You can get SEC Network on there. And ESPN has a subscription, ESPN Plus, where you can get access to even more. And I think they do a pretty good job of covering most NCAA women's games.
Yeah, they do. Of course, to your point, there's some not on there, but I would say majority of them are.
I also know that you're in college and that spending money sucks in college. And so you could pool together with friends. ESPN has some kind of limit on the number of people it can be shared with, but you can pool together with friends and get it. For W games, they have something called League Pass. League Pass is one flat fee for the year. I know that they have a student discount for League Pass, and you get all WNBA games. If not live, you get them recorded. And now more and more WNBA games are popping up on national television. So again, if you have a friend with cable and can get their login, that goes a really long way. To your question of why games are aired across multiple platforms, it is because of media contracts. In exchange for broadcasting rights, networks pay conferences money, which is then distributed among the member schools in that conference. That's usually how it works. For NCAA championships, NCAA, I believe, makes the contracts for the broadcasting rights, but for regular schmegular games, it's made through the conferences. So last year, we talked a ton about the Pac-12 and how crappy their media rights deal was because you couldn't watch any games in the Pac-12. So it does differ by conference, and that's why you see games on so many different networks because each conference is making deals with the networks. You'll notice now there's more and more networks playing women's sports, which is great. Streaming has become such a big thing now too that we have access to so many more games. So I would say the best bang for your buck is an ESPN Plus subscription and then go from there. If you have a certain team, keep an eye on what conference they're in, see where their games are played, because then you might just want to get like a subscription for Peacock or whoever it may be that is most likely broadcasting those games.
I agree. It's a great question, especially to your point with all the options out there, what makes the most sense. So if anyone else has recommendations, would love to hear it because we're always looking for those as well. And thanks for plugging this question.
I know I was back and forth a little bit with Sophia just to confirm that we could say the email on the podcast. And she was like, I know that you love to read emails. I know that you love to get emails from listeners. So yes, we do. Continue to send us emails at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com. Let's get into the highlight reel for this week.
So many good basketball games this past week. It's been so fun to keep up with. Sometimes frustrating when your team loses, but it has been fun to see all the upsets going on.
The NCAA women's basketball rankings are starting to look like the chart that Alice created in the L Word, where if you haven't watched the L Word, you need to. The original one and Generation Q is also great. But one of the characters on the show, Alice, makes a chart of who everyone has slept with. And it's like this chart where everything's going every which way and everyone's connected somehow. And that's what NCAA women's basketball looks like right now because everyone's losing and winning and beating everyone.
Truly, no one is safe. It doesn't matter what your ranking is. The number one seed has been flip-flopped how many times already? It's just been very exciting the past couple weeks, this whole season, really.
So last week, Texas took the number one spot. They were the fourth squad so far to take the top spot this season. And it's the first time the Longhorns have been ranked number one in 21 years.
They've been having such a great year and good for them, honestly.
As you mentioned before, the madness has already started. Let's just name a few of the wild things that happened this past week. So Florida State, 24 at the time, beat Notre Dame number 3, 86-81. Not to mention, sorry, Danielle, Notre Dame also lost to NC State 2 weekends ago.
It's interesting because early on in the season, Notre Dame lost back-to-back games. Since then, they've gone undefeated and they get in the number one spot. And now here we are again, losing 2 games in a row. It just goes back to the point we're making. No one is safe. And that's what makes it so exciting. But if Notre Dame wants to make it to the Final Four, they got to figure this out because
It's not the best time to be losing.
Right. And they're not the only team in top rank that is losing to lower ranked teams. We also had number 20 at the time, Alabama, beat number 7 LSU in overtime, 88-85, another thriller.
And then Duke, number 16, beat number 8 North Carolina 68-53.
And lastly, Kentucky, number 15, beat up on Tennessee, number 11, 82-58.
Not even lastly, because we need to talk about what we're going to highlight this week. USC, number 4, beating UCLA, number 2, 80-67 at UCLA.
To me, I think USC should be ranked higher than UCLA. I've been saying I'm not super impressed with UCLA. Sorry to all the UCLA fans out there. But in this game, USC won, and I would say not easily, but they had control over this game. And USC is responsible for both of UCLA's losses this year, which is interesting. UCLA has not lost to any other team, which is why they're in that number 2 spot. But I just think overall, USC looks like a more dominant team. With this win, they secured the Big Ten regular season title. They're likely going to see each other again in the Big Ten tournament. And I always say it's hard to beat a team 3 times. So we will see if both teams do match up again, what that game looks like. This game was at UCLA, and UCLA fans really showed up. It was a packed house, which made it a little surprising to me that USC was able to take control over the game so early on. No surprise, USC sophomore JuJu Watkins once again went off and had another standout performance with 30 points. This is her 6th 30-point game this season and 20th in her career. As only a sophomore, 13 of her points were scored in the first quarter, and that's when you could tell I was like, wow, USC is really controlling this game. I would say her scoring 13 points in that first quarter really set the tone. She also added 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And she's in a contending spot for Player of the Year. Her name is constantly at the top of that list of who could be Player of the Year.
She relatively looks unbothered while she's playing. She did get fired up in the UCLA game. Cheryl Miller was giving her a big old pat on the back. Cheryl Miller was there with Reggie Miller, her brother, and Reggie Miller had a Lauren Betts UCLA jersey on backwards. Cheryl Miller was in all of her USC gear. It was a really fun thing to watch, and I just think that people were wondering after Caitlin Clark left. I think there was some doubt of can college women's basketball sustain without Caitlin Clark, and we know the answer to that. The answer is
let's
yes.
just be clear. There was no doubt on our end.
Yes.
There were doubt to the people who came in and started watching basketball for the first time. Yeah, we knew. No, if you just continue to watch, you'll see just how good it is.
If you're looking for a star, JuJu Watkins is your star.
Yeah.
I mean, on Nike ads, super composed, a baller. She's your person.
Yeah, she's really fun to watch. Last time that USC played UCLA, you had said, can USC sustain this without the help of other players? Well, Kiki Iriafen definitely helped out in this game, had a big game. She finished with 17 points, 9 rebounds. I was honestly shocked that she was able to come out in the second half so strong because in the first half, she only played 7 minutes because of foul trouble. In college, when I would get in foul trouble early and have to sit most of the first half, it played with me mentally so bad. And I just, a lot of the times, just played like crap the rest of the game because you're so in your head and get so flustered. She had more fouls than points in the first half. She had 3 fouls and 2 points, which is just insane to me.
That is my type of stat. Yeah. That is a stat that I think I've had a lot in my life.
But she came back out in the second half and really helped USC take that win. For the Bruins, they were led by Kiki Rice, who had 16 points, and then Lauren Betts added 11 points and 11 rebounds, but obviously it was not enough for them to win this game.
Yeah, and Lauren Betts struggled once again in this game. They need Lauren Betts playing really well in order to win. That's what I think.
And my hot take is, despite UCLA only losing to USC this season twice, I don't see them making it to the Final Four.
Ooh,
just after,
hot take, Danielle.
I know. After the games I've seen them play, I just don't think they have it in them to make it to the Final Four. I could be wrong, obviously. We'll see what happens. I don't have a crystal ball. That is my hot take.
Okay. My hot take is that JuJu Watkins needs to work on her foul shots all this week.
She did have a rough day at the foul line. Give this girl a break, though. She had a great game. You know, she could have had like 34 points if she made those foul shots.
Do you think USC is making it to the Final Four?
I do. I think they have it in them. And as long as they can continue to put the pieces together, I think they'll make it.
Let's switch gears. Let's talk about the SheBelievesCup, which is soccer. The U.S. women's national team, who is ranked number 1, played number 8 Japan last Wednesday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, which is 8:30 Mountain time. They were playing in San Diego, so 7:30 for them. It's too late. I am in bed at 8:30. I am preparing for bed at 8:30. 10:30, I'm already an hour and a half into sleepy time.
We had the iPad up, set in bed, and both of us were snoozing pretty soon after that, unfortunately.
It is way too late. I don't know how you combat it. You want to be prime time in San Diego, but if you want more people to watch, you got to play it earlier.
Yeah, play at 5:30 San Diego. That's 8:30 p.m. Eastern, which, still late. 6:30 for us. That would have been the right call.
Yeah, just make it good for us. But anyway, the U.S. was competing for their 6th straight SheBelievesCup. They could only win the trophy by winning the game. So if it was a draw, if it was 1-1 or 0-0, Japan would have won it. Japan did win this game 2-1. But let's talk about the road for the U.S. women's national team to get in this position. So first, the U.S. beat Colombia 2-0, and then they beat Australia 2-1 with a totally different lineup, which was very interesting. So they had one lineup versus Colombia, then they totally switched the lineup and beat Australia. For this Australia game, Emma Hayes put out the youngest lineup in almost 25 years and changed the entire starting 11 from the first game.
Wow.
It's very clear that she's trying to get people experience and see who are the up and comers, who could gel in this format. And I really appreciate it. It's smart to do during this time. The SheBelievesCup really doesn't mean much. It's fun to win trophies, but it's not anything huge and major. So let's experiment and let's bring some younger players in.
Yeah, it's a good point to have that international competition and the opportunity to really show what you have in that situation. I think it's a great coaching move on her part.
And the SheBelievesCup is like a round robin. It's not tournament style. It's round robin. And then whoever has the best record with the highest goal differential wins. Coming into the match last Wednesday, both Japan and the U.S. had won both of their matches before. So the U.S. lost to Japan 2-1. This was the first loss under head coach Emma Hayes. And Japan scored in the first 93 seconds of the game. It's rough when that happens. But then the U.S. came back and Ali Sentnor scored to tie it up. It was her second goal of the tournament. She played amazing this entire tournament and is a young player. But then in the second half, Japan comes out again within the first 5 minutes. I think this was in the 50th minute, and scored again with a goal from Toko Koga off a rebound from a free kick. And that was it. Japan then just controlled the ball the rest of the time, and they won. Japan's Mina Tanaka won the SheBelievesCup MVP. She led all players with 4 goals and 3 assists. She didn't score in this game, but she was scoring a ton in others. And she actually plays for the Utah Royals, which I love to see, right? So we see the U.S. women's national team play, and obviously we're rooting for the U.S., but you get to see them play against people they play in the NWSL all the time. And then Mina Tanaka wins the MVP, and she plays for the Utah Royals. So you can go and see this top class talent when you go to an NWSL game, which I just love.
Yeah, that's great.
But here were my takeaways from the SheBelievesCup. So the triple espresso were not there.
Huge loss. I mean, that makes a huge difference for the USA.
But it did provide opportunity for other people to step up. So Trinity Rodman, Mal Swanson, and Sophia Wilson, formerly Sophia Smith, were not there. But then it did give an opportunity for someone like Ali Sentnor to come in and play great.
Yeah.
And then my question is there room for Ali Sentnor, right? We say the triple espresso are locked in, and those are going to be your 3 starting forwards. But a lot of things can happen. And I think Ali Sentnor said, if something happens, I'm your next best option. Or I'm the best option to mix around in here. Maybe we need to expand the triple espresso. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she just played really, really well. The other thing that I thought was Kat Macario is back. I think she is integral to this team. I think she plays incredibly well. I think she's the glue that brings things from the back forward and distributes well to the forwards to score. So I'm really happy to see her back. I think she is the linchpin to move things forward to score goals. That's what I think. And then Lily Johannes started against Japan, and she just looks great. I have heard other soccer players talk about her. They always talk about, soccer players are so weird sometimes. They keep talking about the texture of her passes, which soccer, I feel like purposely uses weird words to be a little bit exclusive. Like they call the field the pitch, and they have all these strange words that are only exclusive to them, but they kept talking about the texture of her passing. But I don't know what that means. All I know is that when she's out there, she looks great, and the way she passes is really incredible. She finds people all the time. I think, and I've said this before, the U.S. women's national team has a midfield problem that they need to figure out.
You need to get on the phone with Emma Hayes and have a little conversation with her.
I think Emma Hayes knows. And we have an embarrassment of riches in the forward position. We have the back line pretty much locked down. Naomi Gurman also didn't play in this tournament, but we know we're going to have a strong back line. We probably also have a goalie problem. But that midfield, we got to get it figured out.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be where we get exposed. We have some more time to do it. The U.S. women's national team plays Brazil twice in April. It'll be interesting to see who comes forward in that and the people who continue to move forward in these off years where we're trying to figure out what's our next World Cup team, what's our next Olympic team.
Yeah, and these matches allow Emma Hayes, like we said, to play around with the roster. So we'll see what she does in April, and we'll see who steps up. It'll be fun to watch.
The other thing that you can't bank on is, unfortunately, and this is a horrible part of it, people get injured. And so it's so great to have so many people that you can rotate through. Who is on the roster now is not going to be necessarily who is on the roster in the future because of things like injury, which is horrible, and because of aging as well, which is unfortunate. So we shall see. I feel like we're in great hands with Emma Hayes. She doesn't need to talk to me. I think she knows exactly where they're at. And I love this idea of bringing in younger players and seeing who flourishes. It's been really cool to watch.
With that, we will transition to our deep dive. And how can we not talk about Diana Taurasi's retirement at age 42 after 20 seasons in the WNBA?
The announcement was, it felt like out of the blue.
It did.
It's in the middle of the WNBA offseason. It's not even close to necessarily the start. And in my head, and I think it's because I don't want to believe it, I'm like, well, she said she's retiring, but is she retiring after this season? I just refuse to believe it, where I'm like, she's got to play one more season and get a farewell tour. But I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, and I honestly think it's a smart move, because how many times have we seen athletes go for that one extra year and just not play well or not end the way that represents their career? And for Diana, she went out playing well in her final season.
Definitely.
And to be able to take some time and step back and think, is this right for me to go back for one more season? And she came to the conclusion, obviously, that it's not, which honestly, I think it's a smart move. She interviewed with Time Magazine. She was quoted in that interview that mentally and physically she's full. She said she's full and she's happy. The other thing she had mentioned is, over New Year's, when it was time to gear up for the Phoenix Mercury's training camp, she just didn't feel like she had it in her. And it reminds me of when Candace Parker retired, because that kind of felt out of the blue as well. But she had been dealing with some injuries at the time, and she said, I know I can't play to my full potential, and I just can't go back knowing that. And if I'm an athlete in that position, I think it's probably really hard knowing how competitive Diana Taurasi is, and I'm sure hanging up the shoes for her is an extremely difficult decision. But I think she took the time. She didn't make the announcement right after the last season. She said, I'm not ready to make that decision. And I think that's a smart way to do it.
And it became clear to her, right? That's a great point.
And she didn't want to pull a Tom Brady and say, I'm retiring, and then come back and be like, psych. She took her time and she decided this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing when people just take some time for mindfulness and are deliberate in their decisions.
Yeah, go women. It will be fun, I think, to talk about her life and overall career starting in high school. So she grew up in Chino, California, and attended Don Antonio Lugo High School. In high school, oh my God. Okay, for anyone who knows basketball, scoring 1,000 points in high school is a big deal.
An achievement.
It is an achievement. And then you have players who are on that next level who score 2,000 points in high school, and that's holy crap.
Did you score 1,000 points?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah. You didn't know that?
I probably did.
I had the school record for my high school, but it was broken, but it was over 1,000 points.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you for remembering.
I had the school record for most amount of fouls. 1,000 fouls.
That's amazing. I love how you don't remember that. Don't you remember when you walked into my high school and you saw my name on the board?
Are we going to just reminisce over high school times here?
I'm sorry. This is about Diana Taurasi, not Danielle.
I'll give you a second, and I will say that one of the first times I went into your high school, Danielle and I grew up in the same area, so I wasn't just walking into Danielle's high school one day like a creep. We were there for some kind of
There was
game.
a softball tournament going on that we both met up to watch.
Of course.
Classic.
And we're not just going to softball tournaments, high school softball tournaments, and watching games.
Because your sister coaches.
Yeah. And my dad also did batting lessons at the time to a bunch of high school players.
This was like over 10 years ago. This was
I would
a long
actually
time
go to
ago.
a high school game now, though.
Yeah, that's
just
not
because,
creepy.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I was in Danielle's school and I walked in and I was like, is this whole gymnasium dedicated to Danielle? You were on every single wall. But I'm struggling a little bit lately because Danielle's getting a lot of attention in the Denver sports
I would
leagues.
not say that. That's being very dramatic.
Danielle is getting a lot of attention in the Denver sports leagues for being really good. And you are the most athletic person I know. But I am also playing in these leagues. And I'm starting to feel a type of way. This is so embarrassing. I'm starting to feel a type of way that people are just overlooking my athletic ability.
Oh my God.
But I guess I'm just not as athletic as I thought.
Carolyn, you are very athletic.
Thank you for saying that, but I have decided that I'm not playing anymore with you so that I can go on my own team and flourish in my own ways. I feel like I'm getting a little bit overshadowed.
That's a lie because we're on the same softball team that starts like in 2 months. So you will be playing with me.
In this relationship, you're like the Caitlin Clark and I'm the Kate Martin, and I need to go to my own Las Vegas Aces and flourish, or my own Valkyries and flourish on my own.
Oh man, I'm sorry this is so hard on you.
Another thing to talk about in therapy. All right, get back to Diana Taurasi.
Yeah, we really went out and around on that one. So back to my point. You got people who score 1,000 points in high school. Great accomplishment. You have people who scored 2,000 points in high school. Unbelievable. Diana Taurasi scored 3,047 points in high school, just to give everyone an idea of how dominant she was. In high school, she was also the recipient of the 2000 Cheryl Miller Award that was presented at the time by the Los Angeles Times to the best player in Southern California. She was recognized as the 1999 and 2000 Miss Basketball State Player of the Year, the 2000 Naismith and Parade Magazine National High School Player of the Year. She also participated in the 2000 WBCA High School All-American game where she scored 12 points and earned MVP honors. The time she was being recruited by schools like UConn, where she ended up going and played under Gino Auriemma. It was fun reading about her visit to UConn because the coaches said to the players at the time, and Sue Bird was a sophomore at the time when she visited, they were like, listen, this kid likes to have fun and just wink, wink. We want her to come here. So show her a good time.
Do whatever you got to do.
Sue Bird was reminiscing and saying that they were driving around in the car and Diana just whips out a CD and was like, here, I have a CD. And they put it in and it's all like California rap music. Then they took Diana out to a bar on campus. Somehow they got her in. She was just like doing the robot in the middle of the dance floor. And the reason I'm saying all this is they were just saying like she just had such a personality. Yeah. You see it on the court, like her personality shows. And Sue Bird and her are obviously very close friends. And Sue said a lot of people have the misconception that Diana's not a warm person. And she said, the second you meet Diana, she has an impact on you. Yeah. She makes you feel connected to her when you start talking to her. And I thought that was really cool.
I don't think she's not warm. I think she's just super competitor. Like, she's gonna yell in your face and then kiss you like she did with Simone Augustus. That is just the type of person she is, where she's gonna punch you in the gut and then tell you had a good game afterwards. So we've heard so many stories in this past week of that exactly happening.
Exactly. To Sue's point, that's what you see though. And when you get to know Diana, she's like, she is someone who has a huge impact. There's a ton of articles out there just telling stories about Diana because everyone knows how good of a player she is. But to hear the type of personality she has through other people's stories is hilarious. Another one is everyone knows Gino Auriemma is a hard ass. And I see it with Paige Beckers a little, like she's able to joke with him. And I think it takes a certain type of player to be able to joke with him and him accept that and be okay with it. And when Diana went there as a freshman, she told him, like, I want to play with number 0 on my back. And he said, no, I don't want 0 on your back because it shows negative implications for the type of player you can be. And she was like, okay, then I want to wear 00. And he called her a double dumbass for that wisecrack. And I just think, like, for someone to come in as a freshman to play under UConn, under Gino, and just to come in with that type of attitude, honestly cracks me up.
Yeah, and she ended up wearing number 3 because Gino told her to, for Babe Ruth, who Diana admitted she had no idea who Babe Ruth was.
She had an incredible college career. Her first season was in the 2000-2001 season. They ended up losing to Notre Dame that year in the Final Four. And Diana said, I will never lose another tournament game as a UConn player. And she didn't. From that moment, they went the next 3 years and won the national championship led by her. In her collegiate career, she averaged 15 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. During the time at UConn, their overall record was 139 wins to 8 losses. If you think about impact that someone has and to have that type of career, it just is unbelievable. She also received a ton of personal accolades at UConn. She was the 2003 and 2004 Naismith Player of the Year. She won the 2003 Wade Trophy, and then 2003 and 2004 Honda Sports Award. And lastly, she was the Associated Press Player of the Year in 2003 as well.
I'm going to talk about Caitlin Clark again. She was the Caitlin Clark during that time. I think she would have been Caitlin Clark if there were better broadcasting, if women's sports had the respect it has gained now.
Gino was also quoted saying if he had $1 for every time he heard a man say the only reason I'll watch women's basketball is because of Diana Taurasi, he'd be rich. Now, you know how I feel about that crap, like when men say stupid shit like that. But sorry, but he, to your point, that was what Diana was to people. They were like, no, I want to watch her play. They also talked about, like, in high school, when she first went to high school, no one would show up to those games. And by the time she was a senior, they would pack it with like 3,000 fans. Like, she was the it girl. For so many years, she took the country by storm. I remember when I was in middle school watching Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi win the national championship. And I just remember being like, that is so cool. The other thing that I thought was funny is Kelsey Plum said that the first time she saw Diana play, it was against Tennessee, UConn, Tennessee. And like most young girls, they're told growing up, you have to play with respect for other players. You can't talk back. You can't show emotion, this and that. And she was 10 years old at the time. And she said she saw Diana shoving girls and trash talking and just playing so physical. And she said, from that moment on, I knew I wanted to play like that. Yep. That was the only time she saw a player, especially a female player, take control of a court like that. Kelsey Plum saying that, she is not the only one who felt that way. Yep. That was girls all over the country who were watching Diana at that time thinking the same thing that Kelsey Plum was thinking.
Yeah, and someone just being authentically them. And they're like, oh, there is a pathway for me. So
exactly, which I think is so cool. And I just love that players like Kelsey Plum have those memories that they can speak to. So moving on to Diana Taurasi's professional career, she was, by no surprise, selected first overall in the 2004 WNBA draft by the Phoenix Mercury. In the first season, this is a rough one. They went 8-26 in 2003, and
that's how they got that first round draft pick.
Coming from UConn, that had to be a tough pill to swallow. In her first WNBA game, she scored 22 points in a 72-66 Mercury loss to the Sacramento Monarchs. Ooh. What a blast from the past there. In her rookie season, she averaged 17 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 3.9 assists per game, which, you know, as a rookie,
that's great.
That
numbers.
Is very impressive. The Mercury did not make it to the playoffs her first year, and yet she was still named to the Western Conference All-Star team and won WNBA Rookie of the Year. I mentioned earlier, just last year in her final season in the WNBA, she still was putting up great numbers. She was averaging only 29 minutes a game compared to the full 40, which is still a lot of minutes, and scored 14.9 points per game last year.
On a good team.
Yeah. So she really had some career. We talk about her scoring earlier. For her WNBA career, she is the all-time leading scorer in the WNBA. And to be fair, 20 years playing has a lot to do with that, but she's leaving the WNBA having scored 10,646 career points.
And she took 1 year off of the WNBA and only played in Russia because that's where she was making a lot of money. So just that's some context as well.
Yeah. And she has a good attitude about her records and scoring. And she said, records are meant to be broken. Someone's going to come in and beat that. She said, hopefully not too soon, which classic Diana. But just to talk a little more about her overall WNBA career.
She is a 3-time WNBA champion in 2007, 2009, and 2014. She is a 2-time finals MVP in 2009 and 2014. She was a league MVP in 2009 and an 11-time All-Star. In addition to her WNBA career, she is a 6-time Olympic gold medalist and is the only American basketball player to compete in 6 games, let alone win a gold in every single appearance.
Her longevity is truly something to look up to. I just remember senior year of college being like, I can't do this anymore. Like, my body can't handle this anymore. Granted, I wasn't treating my body with the most respect back then, but I just look at these WNBA players, especially Diana, who was coming from a time where I feel like we have advanced so much over the years in terms of nutrition and recovery. And I'm sure that's helped her over time. But just the longevity of her game is truly astonishing. Like, when you look at it.
In 20 seasons, she had to pay for that, financially pay to make sure that she was keeping herself healthy. A lot of people don't realize that because the WNBA for so long has been so underfunded that these athletes have to pay for their trainers, pay to make sure that their nutrition is on point. They have to do all of these extra things and they get paid total crap from the WNBA. Yeah. And so for her to be here for this long and to have all of these accomplishments, not only does it speak to her as a player, but it speaks to her as a person, like that resiliency to keep coming back and the dedication. Like, you can think people in the NBA or MLB are really dedicated, but would they be so dedicated if they didn't have access to everything they have access to? These women show up time and time again, put in their own money that they're making, and they're not making a lot, and continue to be here. So I just want to put that out there as well.
Such a great point.
On top of that, we need to talk about Diana's legacy in a different way. Among people our age, and especially among queer people our age, Diana Taurasi has a chokehold over the lesbian population of people our age. We know so many people, queer people, straight people, who love Diana Taurasi, love her as a player, but also just crush on her so hard. And so to those people who are like that, I'm thinking of you. I know that this is a tough time.
I had to reach out to a few friends and check in to make sure they were okay when the news was announced.
So she has that lasting legacy, and I'm going to miss seeing her on the court. We've been saying a super competitor. She's going to yell at the ref. She's going to yell at the fans. She's going to yell at the other players. She has provided so many welcome to the W moments for so many players. And yeah, we're going to miss not having her. When you think WNBA, I think Diana Taurasi.
Yeah. And I just think the content will continue, though. Her and Sue Bird, now Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird, and Diana can travel around to games. I just am excited to see where that goes. And
I'm worried about how drunk they're going to get on their commentary.
I mean, Diana's a mom, to be fair. She also is going to be spending more time with her family.
I know a lot of drunk moms, okay?
But overall, just congratulations to Diana Taurasi. Honestly, a true legend, the GOAT, such a fantastic career. Going to miss her, but excited to see what's in store for her in the coming years now that she's done playing.
And she paved the way. She paved the way for what we're seeing now.
For sure.
Let's get into what we're looking forward to this week.
Yes. So I will continue on the road to March Madness. Conference tournaments start this week. That is like mind blowing to me. So looking ahead at the ACC tournament, that begins Wednesday, March 5th and runs through March 9th. With the game starting on March 5th, they will be played at 1 p.m., 3:30 p.m., and 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ACC Network. So look out for those games. Thinking of the ACC tournament, you have Notre Dame, NC State, UNC, Florida State, Duke. All these teams have been having a great year. It's going to be fun to watch, so be on the lookout for that. What are you looking forward to this week?
I'm going to take it over to softball because conference matchups start this week in softball. There are a ton of top 25 matchups coming up this weekend. Florida versus Texas A&M, Virginia versus Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State versus Texas Tech, South Carolina versus Oklahoma. But I want to highlight the Tennessee versus Georgia game on Friday, March 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. They are going to be playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's how it works with these conference matchups. You play 3 games in a weekend and you aim to win best out of 3. It's interesting in softball because if you lose 1 game in the weekend, it's still a good weekend. If you beat them 2-1, that's still considered a good weekend. Where in basketball, you're trying not to lose like any games. In softball, because they play so many games, you have a little bit more wiggle room to drop a game and still be A-okay. Softball is here and conference matchups are beginning, and it is about to be a wild time.
That's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thank you for joining us.